Hello there, my spooky, scary skeletons. It's Chloe in real life, and welcome back to another episode of my Halloween Spooktacular. Today, we are at Midsummer Scream, and I'm about to go inside for the Halloween Horror Nights panel. I am so excited because they're hopefully going to announce more about the Trick or Treat and Stranger Things maze. If you guys know me, you know that I am obsessed with Trick or Treat, and Stranger Things is just gonna be awesome. So, let's head inside.
Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights is one of the largest seasonal events in the world, drawing hundreds of thousands of frightful fans to its theme parks in California and Florida each year. Midsummer Scream is thrilled to bridge the gap between East and West as we welcome representatives from Universal Studios Hollywood and Universal Orlando Resort to our stage for the first time anywhere. Please welcome together for the first time anywhere, creative director and executive producer for Universal Studios Hollywood, John Murdy. Art director and production designer for Universal Studios Hollywood, Chris Williams. And Senior Director of Entertainment Creative Development for Universal Orlando Resort, Michael Aiello.
What I thought would be cool, we'll do this, we'll run through this, we'll go pretty fast through this part, and then we're going to get into talking about some of the things we're doing this year. But I thought it would be interesting just to talk about the process, because I got this question: when considering IPs, what elements set a property apart as a good fit for a maze? Now, Chris and I have always had 3 rules, and sometimes we break them, but most of the time we try to stick with them. And it's pretty simple. One is awareness, and that simply means, do people know it? Do they want to see it? The reason I use this particular image, this is from, I think, Halloween Horror Nights 2007 or 2008. Notice something about this ad. Do you see the name Freddy anywhere? Do you see the name Jason anywhere? Do you see the name Leatherface anywhere? Do you see the words Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw Massacre? This, to me, is the greatest example of awareness. We could put out a poster that just has those 3 characters, and every single person knows exactly what that means. That's the ideal for a maze. If you could put an image out and instantly people go, I know what that is, I want to see it. That's what we look for. Number 2, we look for characters that we can replicate in a live environment like a maze or a haunted house at Halloween Horror Nights. I use this particular image from Saw because a lot of times when you're working with movies, obviously Freddy's a great character to replicate because it's a mask, but somebody like the Reverse Bear Trap, if she didn't have that headgear on, I don't think that would work. You wouldn't know what it was. So we're always looking for things that have great characters that we can use our live actors to bring them to life. And lastly, it's environments. Of course, this is from Alien vs. Predator. But we're always looking for great environments that we can replicate in a live attraction like Halloween Horror Nights. Is that any different for you guys, what you look for?
No. It's the 3-legged stool. You described it perfectly.
Question: what does it take to collab? We're going to use that term now. For both parks, how often do you have to meet to talk about the mazes?
It's early in the process. It's literally from the IP standpoint.
Probably after this show, actually.
John, Chris, and I will sit down and just kind of spitball ideas on some brands that we haven't attempted before. If there are any white whales that are out there that we've always wanted to do that haven't really materialized yet, it's a really cool kind of first conversation that we'll have. That it's really preliminary at that point. We're just trying to get our head wrapped around what does the event want to be in year 2 or year 3.
And it's funny because sometimes they line up. Like Chris and I will put a list. We usually put a list together, and then we'll talk to Mike and go, "Hey, here's what's on our list." And sometimes he's got things on his list that aren't on our list. And sometimes we go, "Oh yeah, I'd like to do that. Oh yeah." And like some years you'll see us line up with a lot of things in common, and some years less in common. And it's really just when we build those lists.
One thing we consciously do with our content is make sure that we're creating two separate mazes, even if it is the same brand. We want to be able for someone, if they choose to visit the Hollywood Park and experience John and Chris's maze, that they're going to get a different experience on the East Coast with the Halloween Horror Nights team that's there. That's a conscious decision that we make.
I think it was 2008.
Yes.
You and I went to lunch with Mike Doherty, and I think Trick or Treat had just come out, or was about to just come out, and it was supposed to be theatrically released, but at the end of the day, it came out straight to video, right? Yeah, it came. And Mike started talking to us that long ago, so 10 years ago. We had a long lunch, and then every so often we'd always stay in touch with Mike, and then eventually when Universal Studios was doing Krampus, we hooked up and did his film. But the conversation about Trick or Treat with Mike started back in 2008. Last year, of course.
Yeah, last year we did Trick or Treat as a scare zone in our Central Park area of the studio park back home. And again, this was just a labor of love, and really just trying to get the brand out there and get some awareness for the people that don't even know about Trick or Treat, because it really is it's kind of a cult following because of its kind of direct-to-DVD release. But it's the most beautiful film. It is a Halloween tradition for those that are in the know. So we did the scare zone first to really get our guests kind of in the know. And the beautiful thing about this film and the content is that even if you've never seen Trick or Treat, you know Halloween, you know the holiday. So there's a lot of textures there that are immediately that you immediately grab onto, even if you've never seen this film. And if you've never seen Trick or Treat, like that, you have to. It is like it's the Pulp Fiction of horror films, in my opinion. It's the way it's structured.
So I guess when we all started chatting this year, I think you brought it up. You said you wanted to do a maze.
Yes.
Yeah, let's do it. It's time. What about, were you on that same wavelength?
I'm on board.
We talked about this a little bit, but do you each try to do a shared IP relatively the same, or do you like them to do your own twist on them from SoCal Exploring? And I think you answered it earlier, Mike. Yeah, I think, I don't think we necessarily, like in our minds, set out to do that. I think it naturally ends up that way. Usually when we decide an IP, we go off and we design, Chris and I get together and we come up with our idea, and you guys get together and you come up with your idea, and then inevitably we have that moment, usually right before we're going to pitch it, to say like, oh, how does your maze go? Here's how our maze goes. But ours is actually different right out of the gate on this one.
Right out of the gate, it's different, yeah.
Here's an example. So for Hollywood, the facade for the maze is going to be Emma and Henry's house, right? And really, when Chris and I sat down to design it, it's because it's the first scene in the movie, right? And we really liked the idea of the ghosts out front. We liked the idea, oh, there's the house, by the way. It's in construction right now. It's being built. This is prior to props and dressing. Obviously, we have to do all the ghost figures. But we like the idea of kind of teasing Sam. So the first time you see him, he is like the she ghost. It's just like how Emma tragically encountered him in the movie. And of course, you're going to run into Emma as well when you're going through this section. But for Orlando,
because we had done the zone already, we really wanted to kind of hit the guests over the head with something large in scale right off the bat. So we're beginning our maze with Creek's house. And this is in our parade building facility. So we're building Creek's house, and this is to scale. You're going to walk through the front door to scale of Creek's house. So these are some in-progress photos of the facade for our trick-or-treat maze in Orlando.
But the thing I noticed right away when we all started comparing is that we hit all the same beats. Like literally every beat in the film that's in our maze is in Mike's maze, and vice versa. They may be in different spots, but all of the same beats are going to be hit. And just again to we look at each other's work. Sometimes we blatantly steal things from each other. We blatantly stole this idea from your scare zone, actually. The idea of doing the puke scene. If you don't know what we're talking about, maybe Mike, you could explain what you guys did.
So in this story, obviously Wilkins, he has kind of poisoned a lot of the candy that he gives out to kids who have been bad. And this unfortunate young man eats some of that candy and he vomits profusely. The most chocolatey vomit you've ever seen.
Chocolatey,
yeah.
It's disgusting.
So we recreated this in the scare zone. We actually had made a dummy of the small boy that on cue could vomit right there in front of the guests as they were walking through the zone. And Wilkins was a live performer, so he would kind of draw the guests in closer and then cue it right before, right when they didn't expect it. And this poor dummy of this kid would just profusely vomit all over the street. It was awesome.
And we both saw what Orlando did, so we incorporated a similar effect in the maze. So when you go to, you know, the principal, and I should mention, because it's an anthology horror movie, we're really trying to introduce the different sections. So there's like little tableaus that introduce the idea, oh, this is the principal, or this is, you know, the Halloween School Bus Massacre, or this is Surprise Party. So we're going to do all of that as you're going through. And then you sent me a video recently where you guys were R&Ding with Marissa and her team, the Mr. Pukey, or whatever we're calling it.
So I can tell you the way that we've positioned this is that you guys will definitely get wet. You know, and that's
wet.
Yeah.
Which is better than normal getting wet. There's a picture of what we were just talking about. There's the chocolatey, bloody puke.
Yes.
And there's Mike's scare zone from last year, right?
Yes, that was last year, yeah.
Surprise Party, that's another section of the movie where these girls are dressed up in kind of sexy princess costumes, and they're going to a special party, and then once you get there, you find out there's something very mysterious going on with these girls. So that's your costume, I think, on this?
Yes, yeah, that's a work in progress. We made some alterations between the costume that we did in the scare zone and the one we're doing in the maze, but that's an in-progress version of our Red Riding Hood.
But we really wanted to capture that moment, and it's in Chris's design, just like you see there of, you know, walking down that lane in the woods, and something terrible is, you can hear it in front of you, something bad's happening, and lots of people are dying. But we wanted to have that moment where you're walking through the woods and there's the jack-o'-lanterns and everything. They all start to transform, and at first you think they're kind of turning into vampires, because they get the fangs and the features that are very vampire-like, but then they rip off their flesh and they turn into werewolves. So as I mentioned, they turned into werewolves, so that meant we had to create werewolf versions of these girls. This is actually a picture, you found that in the book, right?
Yeah.
Mike, when we first met him, do you remember he gave us that coffee table book on trick-or-treat?
Mm-hmm.
And it has this awesome picture. It is funny, in the movie, you don't see that much of the werewolf, but you don't really see the full, you know, transformed werewolf until it's just the head howling at the moon at the end of Sweet Dreams by Marilyn Manson.
But we're going to show it off.
Oh yeah, of course. So, let's show it off. This is our sculpt for the werewolf girl. This is done by Pat McGee Effects.
And how we've gotten this positioned is that our performer will look out the mouth there, through the mouth, to see vision. So, we can alter the head to make it look very canine.
And it's such a weird combination because you also have to marry the princess dress to this. So it's just a bizarre thing. And then Mike?
Yeah, this is an in-progress version of a puppet we're developing for the wolf as well. So you'll see a couple different versions of the wolf in the maze. This is, again, in progress of a puppet that we're building to be able to really attack the guests. Much in the same way, again, that's one thing we learn on things we've done in our past as well. Figure out how can we improve it, change it to make it a little bit better, a little bit more quality. But yeah, that's a little sneak peek there.
And we're working on a similar thing, but it's not quite sculpted yet, so I couldn't share it with you today. But we'll see in the maze. And then, of course, there's the werewolf girls mid-transformation. We actually, in our maze, you're just going to see them as the werewolf girls, but you're going to see this look in the scare zone. Oh, damn. You didn't hear that. But this is going to be we're doing a trick-or-treat scare zone. There you go. Too late to take it back. So for the scare zone, we're going to have both the fully transformed werewolf girls and the girls mid-transformation. So this is the prosthetic sculpt for the mid-transformation werewolf girl. Of course, we have to do the Halloween School Bus Massacre scene because it's fiction. And when we were working on this, and you guys thought the same exact way, when Chris and I were talking about how do we want to do this scene, this is an image. I think when I was writing the first outline, I sent this image to you and said,
yes, that should be what we see. Exactly. Yep, and that's what you'll see.
So you're going to see the partially submerged school bus in water with all the cat tails, is that right? Cat tails around it, and counter all of the School Bus Massacre kids. If you don't know the film, this is the School Bus Massacre kids. These parents put all their troubled children on the bus, and they pay the bus driver off to drive them into a quarry and kill all their kids. But of course, as in all horror movies, it doesn't quite go like that, and they come back. When they come back, they look like this. They've been rotting down there in that water for decades, so they look all, kind of partially disintegrated and mildewy and slimy, and that's the look that Chris and I latched onto for the maze. And just to give you a close-up, that's kind of what it looks like in the film. And then this is your illustration.
This is a color elevation of the quarry, and it's a massive scene near the tail end of the maze. And the bus is practical, so even though it's drawn in this picture, it is going to be a practical element within the scene. So again, filled with fog and the unfortunate ghostly souls of those poor kids.
And speaking of those poor kids, let's take a look at them. I'll take you through, we're going to do all of them, every one of them in the maze. And the stairs. Okay, Dracula Kid. We're going to do Dracula Kid. We're going to do the Bunny Kid. That's the sculpt we're working on right now for that. Skeleton Kid. I'm just going to make up names as we go along.
These are all done by McGee Effects as well. And if you look at that texture on there, they really tried to get that
paper mache look.
Yeah, totally, absolutely, yeah.
This is Big Head Smiley Face Kid. The Devil Face Kid. The Clown. Big Bag Overhead Smiley Face Guy. And Upside Down Princess.
And so these are masks that we used in our Scare Zone last year, so we're really excited to be able to show their decayed form within the maze. But we can flip through these. These are actual ones we built for the Scare Zone last year. They're exact to the film in color and in scale.
And then, of course, we have to meet Sam. And there's a section of the movie called Meet Sam. And of course, that means we have to produce Sam. So I think the Sam image, that's Orlando's Sam, right?
Yep,
We're
Sam.
still doing ours.
Yep.
And then that's Unmasked Sam, which will be the same for both of ours.
That's right.
And then, just weird little practical things. Sam is a tiny, tiny little guy. But he's got this prop, this broken sucker prop that he uses like a knife. So on the smaller one, that's actually Trick or Treat Studios, the mask company. That's actually the one they sell, but you had to make it bigger, yeah?
Yeah, we made it a little bit bigger and made it soft as well as more durable, actually. And
Because you always have to think about, a guy trying to stab you, that it has to be something soft.
So Tony Lindis, our prop head of our props team, had fabricated this larger sized one, and it also has an aluminum stick on it, basically, as well. So
Beef it up.
yeah, absolutely.
And then for our maze ends with Mr. Krieg's house. So you're going to come to that house. We're going to build the whole house, all the pumpkins out front and the pumpkin jack-o'-lanterns. You're going to walk through the house. That's a couple of images of it in progress you just sent me the other day.
Yeah, it's such a tight approach.
Couldn't get it in one picture.
Yeah, no, couldn't get it. But we're prepping it now for foliage and vines and such. So this was really very recent.
And then, of course, you're going to meet Mr. Krieg. So that's your wardrobe. That's Mike's wardrobe, I think, on that side. And then, of course, you have to go to Mr. Krieg's bedroom. That's our scene, and it's being painted like as we speak.
Yep.
They just started working on it. We're also going to we'll do a ceiling. You're doing a fabric ceiling as well that gets painted on. So you'll see all of that. Marissa's team is making an awesome jack-o'-lantern that looks like it's on fire, just like in the film. That's Orlando's.
Yeah, here's Orlando. So there's the interior of the stairwell in Krieg's house, and then his bedroom, and there's the pumpkin, and that'll be a really fun kind of distractionary technique with a faux fire element that will occur that will draw everybody's eyes that way, so that you can't see where Santa's coming from.
Yeah. And of course, one of the cool things about Trick or Treat is everywhere you go in the film, Sam is kind of there and he's watching you. So I think both of us picked up on this, where as you're going through, you're going to see, in addition to the live performers who are playing Sam that are scaring you, you're also going to see all of these little tableaus, just like out of the film. This one literally, exactly like you see from the surprise party. So you'll see Sam throughout the entire experience as well. How many of you guys are Stranger Things fans out there? Is the Stranger Things maze going to be focused on the first season, second season, or altogether combo of both? From Isaac Munoz. It's going to be focused on the first season, actually. It's funny. Again, I have to give credit to you guys on Twitter. You guys are the ones who made me aware of Stranger Things right when it debuted. I'd look at Twitter and everybody was talking about Stranger Things, and I was like, oh, I got to watch this. And when I sat down to really dive into it and really watch it, I just loved it. I mean, I grew up in the 80s, so of course, it spoke to me, all of the 80s references. But beyond that, the writing, the acting, the production values, everything about the show were fantastic. So, when we sat down, we played around with a 2-season version, and it just felt like we were shortchanging so much. There was so much content just in that first season alone. So then we really, pretty quickly, you and I both decided that this is going to be season 1, start to finish. Everything you experienced in season 1, you'll experience in the maze. I don't know if you guys have anything to add to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, we actually, in the very initial Blue Sky stages, we did an entire 2-season kind of flow. But again, Murdy, to your point, Charles Gray, Patrick Braylor, David Hughes, Matt Walkerdale, they're kind of the think tank with me on this. We again decided that, can we just give focus to one season and really pay off some of the best moments and have time with it, rather than having to very quickly jump from scene to scene.
And of course, this is the Stranger Things key art. And this is a question: what is the hardest part of making the Stranger Things mazes? From Anthony. And I think it's a couple of different things. So we'll give you a little sneak peek of Stranger Things as we go along here. To me, right out of the gate, I think it was this idea, the upside down. How do you do the upside down, right? For us, and particularly Chris and Marissa's team leading the charge here, we talked early on that we need to do the upside down, and we need you to feel like you're in the upside down. How are we going to do this? So we did a series of mock-ups that I was at in Hollywood, and we tested all sorts of different things, projection, etc. We ended up doing this crazy grid that you guys put together, and in order to get and it's really about trying to get that floating particle effect, the spores that are floating. They don't float, they don't obey the laws of gravity when they float. They're going up, they're going down. We tried snow, we tried everything you can imagine. And nothing quite looked right, but what worked was a combination of a couple of different things. Projection, but also physical, actual objects. And I don't know if you want to explain that, but why you drew this grid.
Well, there's the grid. So each letter is essentially a fiber optic that's coming through the wall at a certain length, and on the end of that fiber optic is a cotton batting. And that's what it is. It's a tiny little piece of, honestly, it's like from a snow blanket, so it's a little bit different than a cotton ball.
And it's to diffuse the light,
yeah.
So you can't see the point of light.
And also then to simulate kind of the spore kind of look and feel to it. And then with a fan, depending on how long they are sticking out from the wall, we'll get some movement. And then like John had said, with a combination of a couple of things, which also a short throw projector that has some more that are moving a little bit more freely. And then also, when you're looking at this, you see that there's essentially a backdrop and of like, say, the upside down forest. So we received that the backdrop, a file from Netflix, and we're also going to print that and apply that on the wall as well. So they use that in the show too.
And it's a combination of all these different layers. So you have these dimensional trees, in this particular scene, dimensional trees, which Chris is creating with all of that crazy, I don't even know what you call it, the webbing or the...
Yeah, we're trying to do some of that silicone webbing that, we've seen in the film as well. And right now we're doing some different variations on it, but that's the approach right now that we're trying to do it is silicone and honestly have it close enough that you're walking through it so you feel some of that. If you guys have ever touched silicone, it has a different kind of feel to it as well.
So it's combining all of these different things together to create one idea. And it took a series of mock-ups and trial and error and trying all these different things. But that's what we finally landed on for the Upside Down. Actually, a really incredibly difficult creature to create because, like Mike mentioned earlier, we can create pretty much anything, but we have to think about vision, ergonomics, all of those things. We knew we wanted to do this as a live performer, not a puppet. So we're building a full-blown Demogorgon, head-to-toe creature suit. I think I'll share a couple images of that with you guys. This is our sculpt, Pat McGee's sculpt, in progress for the Demogorgon. That's the head. The teeth are one of the crazy things about this. You look at, I'll change it to the other slide where you can just see, there's the main teeth, and then there's those tiny little minuscule little teeth, and he's got to do all of them, you know, for multiple. You're going to see a lot of this guy. So there's so much that he has to do just to create one. And then this is yours?
Yeah, we're going to feature the Demigorgon in several different looks. So this is kind of the closed mouth version of the Demigorgon. This is again a sculpt by our amazing in-house artists, putting their talent on the clay. I think the next one is an open mouth version. Yeah, there he is. One thing we're doing with the teeth like this, at least in Orlando, these types of smaller details, when our performers are moving, they're usually the first thing that starts to break down. So we're actually going to 3D print all of the teeth into this mesh that we can actually replace an entire layer of the Demigorgon's head in one fell swoop, very quickly. Because we know for a fact, just based on the erratic movement that these performers are going to do within this costume, want to make sure that we can make it look the same way every single night, even if it takes, within the hour to be able to fix and replace. Oh, one thing too, we're also doing a puppeted version of the Demigorgon. We're building busts so that they can actually open and close throughout the maze. So there's several key moments within the maze where you'll see that version of the Demigorgon.
So it's just a little sneak peek at Stranger Things.
All right, you guys. So that was amazing. It was amazing. They dropped stuff about the trick-or-treat thing. We saw pictures. We saw sneak peeks. We saw stuff about the Stranger Things maze. We got a trick-or-treat scare zone coming. You have no idea how excited I am for Horror Nights this year. It will be my first year, so not only will I be experiencing Horror Nights overall, but I will also be experiencing the Trick-or-Treat and Stranger Things mazes and the Trick-or-Treat scare zone. I'm so excited! So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, comment, don't forget to subscribe, and be sure to hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a spooky video just like this one. I will see you all next time. Don't forget to stay spooky.